So we've got about 45 minutes to talk about how we can use, I suppose, your background in what you already understand to increase your revenue opportunities. And I'm in this weird world of well-being, and I'm watching the well-being marketplace grow in all these extraordinary directions without a defined professional at the heart of it. And it's sort of bypassing fitness in a way that I think is a huge missed opportunity. So really the end of this, I want to try and give you an increased understanding of how valuable you are, how valuable you could be, and some potential further avenues above and beyond coaching, above and beyond sets and reps, quality exercise instruction that are within your grasp if you lean a little bit outside of your current scope of practice. I do lots of different things. I was referred to as fitness slut recently, which was a little bit harsh. I can't ever feel. I don't like the word slut. I suppose I'm doing pretty much the same thing everywhere, which is a great big con, which is trying to give operators or consumers a better understanding of how they leverage lifestyle to their advantage. And I think the understanding of lifestyle is such a strange gap that lifestyle is all the things you're doing today, all the things you did yesterday, all the things you'll do tomorrow, and most of it is guesswork. But it'll be the biggest single defining feature of how well you feel, how long you live, and how long you'll live well. And no one really taught us how to lead a healthy lifestyle or what that means. So with lots of different operators, I do that. Anyone listen to either podcast, just to check? There's 3 hands there. That's not bad. It's disappointing, but it's not bad. Okay, front row, fantastic. Bonus points. It's all doing the same thing. It's this marketplace, the messaging around well-being has exploded in 1,000 different directions for good reason, but there doesn't seem to be much agnostic voice in that space. Agnostic in the sense, it looks weird that I'm selling lots of things. I'm not selling anything. I broadly don't sell products. I sell democratized understanding that you can then choose which product you would buy. And I think that's really where we've got to work out what is our role in this strange, ever-evolving well-being industry. My background, it was as a physiologist, but really it was an exercise physiologist. And it started in the world of health screening, where I was working with doctors and working with nurses on these sort of annual health checks that you might have seen or heard, you probably haven't had. And people were paying £600 to come in and find out if they were well or not. It was a really interesting product. And what I learned early on into that, I say early on, 2 years in, was that there wasn't a professional working out whether you were well or not. There were several professionals working out whether you were unwell. And there was a really strange gap. Because if I ask you, are you well? You've got to reach into your very Britishness and say, the traditional answer is, am I well, is not bad. You know, how are you? Nothing fell off me today, so I can't complain. But is that the same as being well? And actually, you know, when I got involved in health screening, we were excluding cardiovascular disease. This person isn't having a heart attack while they're with us. That's good news. This person doesn't have a visible, meaningful tumor or cancer. This person isn't showing cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. So they were being told they were well. But that same individual, when sat with me running their stress electrocardiogram and the various things I would do, was going, it's great that I'm well, but it's odd that I'm so tired. It's great that I'm well, but I don't want to have sex with anyone anymore, let alone my wife. It's great that I'm well, but my immune system's awful. I get a cold, I can't shake it. In the office, I'm the first to get, the last to heal. It's great that I'm well, but I can't run ollie because my knees ache when I run. It's great that I'm well, my back's sore. It's great that I'm well, but I break out in spots when I eat chocolate. But the doctor told me I was well. I said, the doctor didn't tell you that you were well. The doctor told you you're not chronically unwell to the best of his capability to spot it, his or hers. What was interesting to me is there was no well-being professional. There was no one to take that person from I'm not feeling great to I could feel better. But there was an incredible ecosystem of people to work out how unwell they might be, and it wasn't particularly effective. What I want to cover today is that interesting understanding. If you're in the world of fitness, which is, let's be clear, a terrible word. It's not a good word. If you say, is someone fit, what's the first thing you would consider? If I say, are you fit, what's the first thing you would think about? If I said, I saw this person, they're really fit, what do they look like? What's that? How they look. Probably their body composition. Worse than that, probably their BMI. Fitness, a word that has a connotation of something to do with whether my weight is appropriate for my height. Fitness is a contextual word. Am I fit to deliver this session? Are you fit to sit through it? Are you fit to get out of bed? Are you fit to climb a stair? Are you fit to solve a puzzle? Fitness means nothing, apart from it's got a misappropriation that you're something to do with weight. And by the way, if the fitness sector relies on weight, it's dead, because GLP-1 will be better than you at losing weight. It's already better than you at losing weight. Whether you agree with that or not, that is a stone cold fact. You're not going to lose me 25% of my weight in 1 year, but Mounjaro will. So fitness is an interesting word. Wellbeing has crept up, but why is fitness not a part of wellbeing? Is fitness wellbeing? Are those the same thing? Let's try and clarify that today. And again, I strongly believe, I may again cast shade on fitness, but I strongly believe that you could be the most valuable health professional in the world. Valuable. I do find it interesting on Harley Street that the most valuable professionals, again in this sort of elite medical stream, are executive coaches. You can see a cardiologist to be £350 for 15 minutes. You can see an executive coach, 10 grand for a session. I know what you're thinking. How do I quickly requalify as an executive coach? Right? Why? Because coaches trade in value. And if you trade in value, you trade at a very different transactional rate if you trade in time. If I change your career, what am I worth to you? If I diagnose you with a disease, what am I worth to you? If I change your likelihood of getting a disease, what am I worth to you? So I want to talk about value when we talk about are you in fitness? And at the end of this, I'd like you to think about the language you use to refer to yourself, what you offer. I would like to change your emphasis on the quality of what you deliver. It's much better than you probably think. And I'd like to give you a belief that you could be a much bigger part of a bigger problem than, again, the role you might be doing. And you might be doing all this already, and hopefully this is just affirming your role. Well-being was a luxury, right? If you said, I'm going to do a talk on well-being in 1985, people would have said, is this about a spa weekend? Are we doing massages? Am I getting rubbed down with foam? Well-being was a luxury thing, a weekend with the girls, a Marbella juicing retreat. It was great. Well-being's changed because the world has changed. And if you haven't noticed, it's now the hardest lived time in history to be well. Now, you could argue against that. I always say people who lived through the plague would say that was a tougher time to be well. The plague was awful. That was a tougher time to not be unwell, but this is the toughest time to be well. Converging factors. World Health Organization called it an obesogenic environment in the 90s because everything today will try and make you gain weight. Everything. Every invention that will be pressed into your palm will make your life easier. Who said easier was better? It's a really interesting sense. Who said doing less was better for me? Who says my Uber picking me up versus walking to a taxi rank was good for me? Who said clapping my hands to turn the lights off was a progressive step for humanity? Who said me ordering my shopping to arrive at my door? Who said me not even going to work anymore was good for me? Someone said it would build me efficiency and give me time back, time that I can reinvest in frolicking in the forest with my friends, or sat further on the sofa doom scrolling and not moving. It's an obesogenic environment because I don't move. I have to consciously move now. 100 years ago, you had to move. Now you don't have to move at all. The world comes to you. It's obesogenic because your food, which is the other part of the calorie intake play, has changed immeasurably too. Our food system, is it broken? It's a market economy. People serve food you want to eat. It's a pleasure-orientated industry. And we've got 70% of the calories in the UK as ultra-processed food. 5 or more ingredients, and again, you couldn't make it in your kitchen at home. Why is that relevant? That food is designed to have zero texture, quick pleasure release, and it's designed for you to overconsume it. It's calorie dense, it doesn't tell you you're full, and I do find it, again, interesting, the fastest growing drug in the world, GLP-1, mimics the effect of fiber, which we've taken out of our food system. It's just a really interesting moment to pause and go, what are we doing? So you are likely to gain weight, and 65% of the UK is overweight, and again, the drug companies come up with a great solution to that, different discussion. Anxiogenic environment, it's not enough that you're gaining weight, you should now be slightly worried. All the time. All the time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 24-hour news without testing it on human beings and just show you every horrible thing that could happen to you around the world all the time. Even better, I'll put it in your pocket so you get notified when a child has been murdered in a different country. And I'll just hope you've got the emotional resilience to deal with that, while simultaneously removing your emotional resilience by telling you grit is a wasted entity and we should all get competitor medals and no one wins sports day. We've changed our entire approach to building grit and resilience at a time when we're encountering more things that challenge it on a daily basis. And of course, mental health is a crisis. Mental health is a symptom, in most cases, there's clinical cases, of a very difficult world in which to be well and a lack of the skills that would push you against that environment. Anxiogenic, best summarized by everybody wants you slightly worried. Everybody, because you click, you engage, you remain engaged with their product. CEO of Netflix, always raise it up, was asked, who's your biggest competitor? And he said, sleep. Sleep. Because he wants you watching. He doesn't care if you're asleep. He's not interested in your health. He keeps you there. So suddenly we've got a completely different engagement. Add to that continuous light. Add to that continuous noise. Add to that a whole range of things that physiologically are anomalous. And we have anxiety-generating environment, obesity-generating environment. And the exposome is in amongst all this. There's new benzenes from air, from car pollution. There's microplastics from the fact we put plastic around everything. There is, again, sulfates in our products that we wash into our hair and our face. There are pesticides on our food. It's a cheery talk, I know. The reality of this is why we have this extraordinary moment in time where we have never known more about how you work as a machine. Right? We can clone a sheep in the 90s. We can do stem cells. I've been involved in stem cell therapies. We can do gene editing. You've got 10 grand, we'll fly you to Honduras and we'll punch out the gene that means you lose muscle. We'll do follistatin therapy. And suddenly you're a big muscly person without weight training. This is exciting. But life expectancy is exactly the same. It dipped during COVID, it's the same. And now we've got somewhere between 19 and 20 years ill in this country. And we haven't preserved life. In fact, we've removed the quality of life by extending ill health by decades. So you can look forward to 2 decades of being sick at the end of your UK lifespan because your body doesn't know what the hell's going on. So the wellness industry wasn't needed for my great-grandparents. It is needed now because it's a set of rules that push me back against this environment. And how do I express that to people? Well, fatigue is a wonderful barometer of well-being. To me, fatigue is maybe the most overlooked and misunderstood parameter because 1 in 8 people feel tired all the time, 1 in 4 feel tired most of the time. And when did that become normal? I did a talk to an investment bank recently, their senior MD level, 100 people in the room, asked them what's their average energy levels out of 100. Average score in the room was 37. And that's normal. Is it normal to be tired all the time? It categorically isn't. Fatigue is a symptom, as many other things are. So we have a dysfunctional world. And where are people turning for solutions? To social media. 56% of all Gen Z take all of their advice from TikTok. They're not going to the World Health Organization and downloading 150 minutes of cardio a week, 2 resistance sessions. They're looking at Barbara, who's doing a juicing recipe from her kitchen in Belgravia. They are taking advice from N=1 biased practitioners with no accountability whatsoever. And we have an extraordinary sea of miscommunication and misunderstanding, and you're fighting against all of this. This was me on X, which again is the cesspit of all social medias, if anyone's still on there. Where any opinion is torn to pieces, whether it's good or bad, but these are all very clear, what we call cognitive biases, which is, do you know what? I actually managed to do a 24-hour fast once a week. I lost some weight, my energy improved, my stools cleared up, so I'm going to tell everyone that's their problem. I'll tell everyone my problem was their problem and my solution must be their solution. And suddenly, Janice in Coventry tries doing a 24-hour fast once a week with an eating disorder, with poor glycemic control, and she feels like crap. And now she's like, I'm useless, I can't do it. And so everyone is trying and failing other people's one moment of success. It's a broken model that at the moment doesn't have a clear solution. We've got to, again, frame, health, well-being, fitness, performance, they're all exactly the same thing. They're just different approaches to the same graph. Wherever I speak, someone takes a photo of me next to this graph and it looks like I do the same talk everywhere I go. I don't, but I do bring up this graph a lot because you need to understand what your role is. So what we think about is human physiology, and you are a machine, and you're a machine that can work extremely well, or a machine that doesn't work at all. Right? That's on a very basic principle. You're actually 17 different biological systems that all have a linear capability. What do I mean by that? If my cardiovascular capacity is extraordinarily high functioning, I could do an Ironman. If my cardiovascular system is extraordinarily malfunctioning, I can't deliver oxygen to my brain, I have a stroke. Right? Every one of your systems, your digestive system may not work at all, you get ulcers or you fail, or your digestive system might mean you can go to Ibiza and eat a brick and you have a nice stool afterwards. Right? The reality is we all work on this, but human physiology is linear, not binary, not ill or well. There's no state of illness or wellness. There's a continuum. And what you've got is, here's that British definition of, am I okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Nothing is terrible. I'm not so poorly functioning, my body's sending me symptoms of distress. But nor am I flourishing, nor am I energized, nor am I thriving. And what we've got is a medical model that is trained to catch you somewhere between signs and symptoms before gross dysfunction. And when I was doing health screening back in the day, I was saying, can we spot a heart attack before it kills you? Can we spot a cancer before it spreads? Can we spot Alzheimer's before you go in a care home? Not can we stop cancer, not can we stop heart disease, not can we stop Alzheimer's. That's interestingly nobody's job. Our job was to catch you and bring you back to here. And when I say our job, the medical model is often called the reactive healthcare system because it has no remit, no responsibility, no skills and no culture to do anything but catch you and drag you back here. Then you go to a performance talk and people are talking about marginal gains. And if you wear a slightly different insert in your heel, you'll be 0.1% faster. And if you go to bed 13 minutes before the sun goes down, you'll be able to decrease recovery. And we've got elite level performance where I'm trying to go from a national athlete to an elite level athlete. Most people aren't so dysfunctional, they're crying out for help. Most people aren't performance athletes. Most people are in here, giving themselves a score of 37 out of 100, not knowing what causes them to go left and what causes them to go right. And that's the piece that we're missing when we get to education. I was told my health was out of my control. My genes, my parents, my inherited traits. DNA data is telling us your health is in your hands. How well I work is not something that happens to me, it's something that happens through me. 80% of my health, my well-being, my performance is driven by lifestyle, 20% by genetics. Now that's pretty conservative. Others would say it's 5% genetics. So if your body starts to work less well or work more well, it's not luck, it's not age, it is what lifestyle is your physiology encountering. And that makes it important. And again, we come back here to say, what's the definition of good health? Good health is a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So good health, complete physical, mental, social well-being, not just not being ill or infirm. And the minute you hear that, you realize one important thing. There is no good health professional. It doesn't exist. There are ill health professionals, and there are performance professionals, and there are fitness professionals, task-specific. There's no good health professional who exists on this planet. And so good health is left to my decision-making, with the biggest source of information being Twitter. What moves this right? Whether you move left or right is about the factors that your physiology encounters. Your body is a calibrating machine. Everything you do every day is a message to your cellular structure of what do you want me to be. If you ask me to sit all day, I'll build the capability to sit all day. If you ask me to climb a mountain every day, I'll build the capability to climb a mountain every day. You are a calibrating machine to the messages you give your body most often, not genes. What are those messages? They're coming through the lens of how much you move. Do you move a lot or do you not move? They come through the lens of do you nourish or do you have an absence of nutrients? They come through the concept of recovery, which isn't, I did squats today and I can't walk down the stairs tomorrow. Recovery is the biological return of energy. So it's sleep, it's anti-inflammatory, it's rest and recovery. Do I recover or do I load excessively? Do I protect myself from my physical environment, light, dark, heat, cold, cultural environment, social environment, tribalism? And what do I think about everything that's going on? These are the levers. Right? And what I find interesting when I got to Harley Street in the sort of high-end medicine was that we had an endocrinologist looking at hormones, but the hormones linked to the gut. But I had a gastroenterologist looking at the gut, but the gut links to the heart. I had a cardiologist looking at the heart, but the heart links to the brain. But we had a neurologist looking at the brain. And all these people were looking at this little narrow section of my physiology or my client's physiology and going, my bit's working okay or my bit isn't working okay. And we've done the same, which is a very ineffective model because there is no cardiology, there is no endocrinology, you're just one synergistic machine, that we've broken these into such divisive categories when they all work together. You know you can't outrun a bad diet, but you can't outsleep good quality movement. You can't underthink quality rest and recovery. You can't do all the lifestyle things and live in the shadow of Chernobyl and expect to feel well. Fundamentally, this is a holistic organism that takes a holistic range of inputs, and there's no one who pulls that all together. It's an absence, and whatever you don't cover, someone else will. Someone goes, I don't do diet. So who do you think is going to do diet for your client? Because it'll be Janice in Coventry on TikTok. Who do you think is going to do sleep if you don't do sleep? Who do you think is going to do mindset if you don't do mindset? And this sort of strange thing is, I'm not a specialist in it, I get that. But if you don't cover it off with the people you work with, they will find it elsewhere. And there's no expert in these things at a pre-clinical level. And that's an important distinction. When someone catches me eating a kebab outside a nightclub, does happen. They say, oh, you can't do that, it's bad for you. No such thing. There's no bad for you, there's no good for you. There's positive inflections in physiology and negative. And you're the aggregate sum of that across all those domains over time. My cellular structure is not going to change because I ate some pretty questionable lamb meat at 2 a.m. while hammered. If I do it 5 days a week for 3 months, my body calibrates to it. There's no chastisable behavior. You're every day inflecting positivity onto your physiology, and every day you're challenging it in ways it doesn't like. It doesn't like to detoxify alcohol, doesn't want to get rid of the junk in a kebab, it doesn't want to do, again, 4 hours of junk sleep. But it can do it. The question is what it does over time. And that's why we have to say you can't have a rule around physiology, you can have principles, But lifestyle has become, again, a sort of cult of binary, you're in or you're out. No such thing. It's nuanced, and it's contextual, and it's holistic. And it may not be the area you're specializing is the limiting factor. I love people who train 5 times a week and can't lose weight and say, maybe I should train 6 times a week. It's probably not the training volume. I love people who sleep 9 hours a night and wake up unrefreshed and go, I need 10 hours. You're probably not refreshed because you're not sleeping enough. If we don't have an understanding of the holistic inputs, we can't problem solve in clients who aren't just, again, lacking in calories and burning. So well-being is this big piece. But people are dysfunctional. So if I've got a dodgy tummy, I've eaten my kebab, I was at Pop World at the UK Active, if anyone saw me in there, that's good. Yeah, shameful. So the next day I might have had a dodgy tummy. What would I do? Who would I see? What would I do with a dodgy tummy? I've got the runs. But if this is a soundbite, by the way, I don't want anyone clipping that moment. I've got the runs, what do? I definitely go to Boots and I definitely buy Imodium. That will protect me for another proper night out the following night. So I'll clog up the old digestive system because I'm going to crap my pants. So that's perfectly reasonable. I'm knackered the day after heavy day. What do? If I'm knackered, what do? Have a coffee. I love the people going to sleep. Anyone got children? So knackered. I was just going to sleep. The child's alive. So general fatigue, yeah. If I'm really struggling to fall asleep, what's going to knock me out? You could go on your phone, yeah. It could fill the time. Sleeping tablet will take you out, yeah. Or you could booze, you could dram of whiskey if you've got children. I do recommend that. Stubborn weight, there's a drug for that. Heightened stress, someone might pop me a pill of ashwagandha. Someone might pop me a little reefer, get on the cannabis. I might be given St. John's wort, that would be nice. I might be given a range of adaptogenic coffees. Someone's going to sell me a tea that's going to solve my dysfunctional marriage. It's great news. I've got low sex drive. What do? TRT? That's a genuine question, actually. no. I've got low sex drive. Or I could bypass TRT and just take Viagra. That will give me the ability, not the drive, it'll give me the ability. Brain fog, blah, blah. Why I say all this? These products are flying. Flying. What are these? What collective word would you use to describe all the things on the page there? Symptoms? Someone said solutions? Symptoms? I think it's fair. Symptoms are interesting, right? Because these aren't clinical conditions. These are cries for help. The body is a feedback loop. If I eat terrible food, my digestive system will say, I haven't got the fiber to bind it together, and you're dehydrated. If I do not rest and sleep properly, I will exhibit fatigue. If I overeat calories over time and inadequately move, I'll gain weight. It's visible. These are the body saying, you're doing something I don't like. And for some reason, someone decided these are health conditions. These aren't health conditions. These are symptoms of a dysfunctional lifestyle. There's a genetic component to these, but fundamentally, we've created extraordinary industries at masking symptoms. There is a condition born, you don't feel pain. You might think that's brilliant. I think there's a film called Novocaine about this at the moment. There's a condition, you can't feel pain, you think that's great, until you put your hand on a stove and the first thing you notice is the smell of your hand burning. Or you break your ankle, you don't notice you broke your ankle and you get a blood clot traveling to your lungs. Or this mole that's become itchy and irritable you didn't notice till it was a melanoma. Why is pain there? Because it tells you you're doing something I don't like. Why is fatigue there? It's telling you you're doing something I don't like. Why is weight there? It's telling you you're doing something I don't like. Why are you losing your libido? Because it's telling you, why would I make love at a time when I'm probably needed to go to war? Doesn't make sense. This is the feedback loop to human physiology. I watch everyone coming into Paddington every day, glugging down a caffeinated drink with an energy score of 37, and 6 years down the line they say, I can't believe I got cancer. 1 in 2 people will get cancer now. Because their body was talking to them for 12 years before they got the real problem, when their person found them dysfunctional enough to meet a diagnostic code. There is no expert. We've got an obesogenic environment, we've got an anxiogenic environment. We understand the science. We want personalized data, but there's no one who manages it for me. There's people selling me turmeric shots and ice baths. There's no one managing me. There is no one looking after the health collectively of an individual. And health, well-being, performance, it's the same thing. It's physiology. Does anyone care? Because everyone's making loads of money. Wellness industry is fastest growing economy in the world. Everyone's doing really well. If you can, probably open another gym. You can probably sell another energy shot. You can probably sell a new adaptogenic coffee. No one's getting more well. Let's be absolutely clear. And, David, we talk about this. The fitness industry is growing. Is anyone healthier for its presence? Truly. And do we know if anyone is healthier for the effort we're putting in? We know they're slimmer. We know they're probably more able to run a 5K. Are they healthier? So the disconnect between the things we do and the outcome of the globe, the population is challenging. We're at 16%, David, in terms of penetration? 16.6. So it's growth. This is extraordinarily exciting. But the people coming to us are probably slim and fit. I'll talk about corporate wellbeing in a minute. How do we truly get people who need us more than those who've already found us? And by the time people find you, they're already pretty convinced. But it's growing and it's exciting, but it isn't moving the dial. Nico Health's an interesting product. Has anyone seen this? Scandinavian company set up by Daniel Ek, who co-founded Spotify. And he was like, I'm just going to make an inflection into the healthcare sector. I'm going to build a health screen that puts you in this funny tube with some cool slippers on, charge you 299 quid, and we're going to do the future of health screening. Opened a clinic in Stockholm, 299 quid. They run some bloods and a body scan. They call it a health check. And then they opened one in London. And in London, within 6 weeks, they had 100,000 people on their waiting list, wanting to pay 299 quid to go in Daniel Ek, the Spotify founder, not Daniel Ek, the physician, Daniel Ek's scanner. And then they went and said, we're doing pretty well. They raised 270 million at a 2.2 billion valuation on 5 sites. So some of you might have 2 sites, 3 sites. Why is Daniel Ek valued at 2.2 billion? Because people don't feel well and they don't know what to do. They will queue up overnight to be given a scan that won't give them a glimpse as to whether they're well or not. This will tell you if you do or don't have potential skin cancer, and run basic bloods that you could run for 45 quid online. But it's an incredible experience, but it tells you people want to buy a solution to why they feel like crap. And every year we'll get another series of trends from the Global Wellness Institute that forgets the fact we don't move, we don't eat, we don't connect, we don't sleep. It doesn't matter because the industry rolls on. If you don't understand the basics, how will you understand that this year's thing is going to be biophilia, or this is now going to be about, again, some form of social wellness? The basics have been neglected and we keep going after the trinkets. Wellness isn't medical fitness. Again, when I see people saying, how's the fitness industry going to help with the NHS burden? How are we going to build care pathways out of, post-cardiovascular disease? I don't know if we will. The medical industry is so intrinsic, it's so locked down that waiting for medicine to feed us these extra people is a potential lifelong journey. I think we have to align with medical institutes, but we have to go to the consumer and say, there's no one looking after you, right? And I will try and look after you in as broad a way as possibly exists, but there's no one looking after you. Why I'm interested in wellbeing versus fitness. If I'm a fitness delivery, I can, of course, have a digital offering. I could train you online. I might sell you whey protein, electrolytes, and possibly creatine. I might well have some sort of hardware interface. I might work with a Whoop and Aura. I might do, and I'll obviously sell you transactional PT. It's great. Why wellness has become interesting to operators and individuals is if I'm a wellbeing professional, then I'm going to sell you a monthly data tracking. I'll download your Whoop and I'll look at the data. I'll look at your sleep and I'll look at your Aura. I can now do corporate wellbeing. I can go beyond sports supplements into nutrients. I could do B vitamins. I could do probiotics. I could do magnesium. I could do a whole range of different things because I'm no longer just talking about your athletic performance. I could partner with, again, one of the labs, Randox, and run bloods and absorb those bloods into my platform. If you're following Whoop and Aura, and I think you should be, you'll understand they've both launched labs these last few weeks, which means they're running bloods, they're smashing my blood data into my sleep data, into my movement data, and Whoop wants to own me. Whoop wants to own me, and Whoop actually doesn't really care much about you as a profession, truth be told. It wants to own the entire customer journey. I can sell longevity, I can do an awful lot more. And of course, the great interesting point from an operator point of view is you're a well-being operator, you can exit at a much higher multiple because you can do all these different things. If you're a fitness operator, you're going to do more sites. That's fine. Yeah? If you have 5 gyms, they'll value at 7 gyms, 10 gyms. If you're a wellness operator, you can go in 10 different directions. And this is why everyone is trying to do this rightly or wrongly. I want to touch on health testing as the first point of call because it's interesting. Why there are 100,000 people queuing up to have a mole map and no one's interested in the measurement of physiology that pertains to length of life does amaze me. So let's just quickly go back to biology. My ability to generate strength is a different physiological capability to my ability to move synergistically in harmony with mobility, which is a different biological capability to delivering oxygen to my tissues and returning carbon dioxide. And it's what's interesting when I ask someone about how much exercise they do, they just tell me how often they sweat wearing Lycra. They don't break it down into which biological system they've targeted and why. Now that's where health testing gets interesting because these 3 are pretty important. Keith was talking earlier in the last talk about the value of a movement screen as a client acquisition tool. Spoiler alert, I do work with Technogym, but I also believe in lots of the providers here. These devices are now creating this thing called a fitness age, whether it's an eGym, whether it's a Technogym checkup, whether it's other, because consumers are desperately trying to understand also why they don't feel well, but they also want hyper-personalized guidance. I would argue that going through a Technogym checkup would be a much greater value exchange than going through the NICO 100,000 people queuing for a health assessment. Why? Because this is the thing that actually affects or measures the real part of your health. This guy's doing a VO2 max test. Yeah, has anyone done a VO2 max test in this room? Yeah, it's grueling. Which, yeah, what was that second bit? Was someone coughing up a result there?
Yeah, sorry, no, we offer it to clients.
You offer it to clients, fantastic. Yeah, good. And hopefully an increasing take-up. VO2 max is the volume of oxygen you can consume in 1 minute of maximum exercise, right? You used to have to do it through open circuit spirometry. Now there's many ways you can do it without actually doing anything. You can do it lying down at a clinically accurate level. It's an interesting test. You won't get the same data, but you will get a reproducible, trendable marker. Why is VO2 max moving out of the performance laboratory into the medical clinic? Because this is the single best predictor of how long everyone in this room will live. If I've got your VO2 max, it's a better predictor of your life expectancy than your weight, your smoking, if you've got diabetes, your cholesterol, your glucose. This is the ultimate number. And the American Heart Association said, it's mad, isn't it? Every doctor should do VO2 max, as they laugh away. Everybody should know VO2 max. VO2 max is, going to tell probably who's going to win the 10K race in this room, but it's also going to tell us who shouldn't undergo complex surgery because they won't survive the anesthetic. VO2 max isn't about the volume of oxygen I can perform with. It's about how much oxygen I can deliver to my tissues. And I'm running on oxygen now, so are you. This is the number of life. If I can't deliver more than 18 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram in a minute, I'm probably not able to get out of the house. I'm probably in a care home. If I'm down at 16, I won't survive surgery. And what's interesting about VO2 max is we lose 10% per decade after 35, 15% after 50. So when people confuse aging as some biological process outside of their control, they're actually confusing loss of VO2 max. And the funny thing about measurement, and why I love NICO Health and why I love all of this, is no one got healthier from a health assessment. You know, when you go to a health assessment, you come out and you're still you. They don't inject you with anything. It's like, oh, well done, going for the NICO Health scan. Here's a lifetime subscription to Spotify and another 5 years off your life. You only get a potential strategy. The execution of that strategy is what your cells will calibrate to. So you're the only profession, as far as I'm aware, that can increase VO2 max. Unless you're telling me someone else knows how to do regular progressive overload of cardiorespiratory fitness and manage weight, the two key variables at play. So you are the only profession capable really to measure it and influence it. And the reason it's not spoken about is doctors don't own it because they can't measure it and they can't influence it. There's no drug for VO2 max. Cordyceps, interesting mushroom, shows in some trials increasing VO2 max. You'll watch cordyceps sales go through the roof because I love the idea I can sit at home on my ass with my Normatec boots on and boost up my my VO2 max. It's hard work. And there's no profession who specializes in it. You do. I'd add to that someone once confused aging with increased risk of cardiovascular disease, because when you age, you fatigue quicker, your muscles weaken, you reduce endurance capacity, your muscles waste. That leads to a cascade of things that mean you get a heart attack, stroke, or Alzheimer's. The confusing part about this graph is they forgot to put muscle wasting above aging. Sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass, if it's not a word you use, you should use it every other day, every other client. You'll lose 3 to 5% of your skeletal muscle mass every decade after 35. And in that loss of muscle, you fatigue quicker, you don't have the same endurance capability, you lose bone mass, you lose the ability to harbor and store glycogen, and actually, you change. You change, interestingly, I don't know if anyone eats steak, you change from a fillet to a sort of a wagyu. Does anyone know that? So again, not that I sizzle humans on a regular basis, but this is someone the same age who effectively did resistance training and didn't do resistance training. And that was a reversible state. That's a cross-section of the quadricep muscle, so looking down, what's the fat infiltration? What's interesting about this is these two people weigh the same. So when you think about weight, we've lost our mind. Right? When someone goes, oh, I managed to lose 15 kilograms of weight, I'm like, please God, let that be 14 kilograms of fat. If that's 14 kilograms of muscle, you are far less healthy than you were before you lost that weight. So what we know is that loss of muscle mass, that loss of VO2 is the major determinant of aging, and there's no drug, there's no person, there's no profession that can abate or reverse that apart from you. So these are probably the two most important elements. And what's interesting about Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro is we are seeing, of course, that we're seeing 25% weight loss in the first year, but maybe 15% more lean tissue loss than we would on traditional dieting. So for the first time in your lives, you have the best opportunity to sell resistance training to a group of people who've never considered it. And again, I speak often at various fitness things and the fitness profession like this, it's a drug for lazy people. If you think it's a drug for lazy people, you don't understand obesity is a disease. You need to go back to basics and understand it. You may not have met these people, but they're not lazy. They're suffering from gene dysfunction, eating disorders, emotional challenges. They're complex. They've got a drug, they've got a savior, but that savior only works if you're given resistance training alongside it. If you aren't looking now at how you align with pharmaceutical companies, weight management centers, GLP-1, GIP, you will be left behind because these drugs work extraordinarily effectively. But those people are losing muscle mass and they're malnourished and they're not going to have a long-term health outcome, but they will lose weight rapidly and aggressively. And mobility, why are there, there's a Pilates studio where there was once a field, there's a Pilates studio where there was once a cinema, there's a Pilates studio, and I love Pilates studio. Reformer Pilates is booming for good reason, because if you sit all day, you have double the risk of getting back pain. If you sit all day, you have, again, as most people do, 80% of people suffer from back pain, 85% of that back pain is idiopathic, it's not anatomical, it's because we were never designed to sit. So in Pilates, and again, movement modalities, we have the antidote to the fact we were never designed to sit in static postures for hours on end. So someone who can make me move like a farmer, lift like a farmer, travel like a farmer, goes back to the very origin of my physiology, which has been condensed into a sort of packeted lifestyle that it absolutely hates. And it keeps telling us it hates it, and every time it shows us it hates it, we give it another drug to hide the sign of the hate. You own the keys to the biggest factor that will affect my quality of injury and pain. You own the keys to the biggest factor that will cause me to age and die, and you're selling weight loss against a drug that will outperform you, or are you? And that's what I'm talking about with wellness. When people ask, what do I do? And no one ever does ask that. And my favorite quote was always when I spoke at a fitness conference, someone said, what we like about Ollie is he doesn't look like a fitness professional. And again, those words still haunt me in the depths of the night. Don't know what they meant. But I do the minimum amount possible. I don't dedicate my life to being well. I dedicate my life to being a good dad, being a good husband. So I do the minimum amount of exercise possible to secure my VO2 max at a number I'm comfortable with, to secure my muscle mass at a volume that is ratcheted, and to make sure my mobility is at the bare minimum that I probably don't tweak a hamstring playing very average paddle 2 to 3 times a year. I don't train for the sake of training. I train to maintain my biological capability against its age-related regression. And there is this interesting point, and again, it depends whether you work with people under 35 or not. If you're under 35 in this room, you should be doing a cartwheel for joy, because you are a biological machine, full of stem cells, full of androgen hormones, estrogen, testosterone, full of the beans. Then at 35 to 45, you dive off a cliff. You dive off a cliff. The body goes, I gave you a chance, Ollie. I gave you a chance to meet, to mate, to do what you wanted to do. Now I'm just going to wither you on the vine until you die. Right? And medicine says, I'm just going to extend that death bit a bit longer. But that is what we are. We are designed with a biological capability to grow and acquire. Then it's diminishing year on year. And so what you do in your 20s and 30s might be pursuit of performance. It might be psychological well-being. It might be social connection. It might be all those things. But what you do after 35 is critical and necessary. It's an opt-in to 35 as far as I'm concerned, but it's an opt-out after. It's a non-negotiable. And the idea that it's seen as a hobby is a disgrace. The idea that this is seen as something that people might do with spare time, at the root of it, when everything that goes wrong with these conditions ends up in the NHS state system, is insanity. But that's where we're at. But fitness is over here talking about fitness, and that's what I'm trying to get out of our minds. Brian Johnson's an interesting guy. We all know Brian Johnson, do we? Anyone know him personally? Yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's the sort of guy who's pioneered longevity, and longevity is one of the fastest growing commercial areas in the global wellness economy. Why? Because it makes sense in one word. I can sell you a longevity product because it means I'm probably going to live longer or live well for longer. I sell you a well-being product. What the hell am I selling you? Some of you, it's about mental well-being and not being as anxious. Some of you, it's about physical well-being, having better gut. Some of you, it might be about better sleep. Well-being doesn't mean anything. It's contextual. What is your version of well-being? What is your version of well-being? Longevity means something. So it's doing very well from a traction point of view, and you need to get on the bus. Brian Johnson is a bit of a, he's basically trying to, anything that's proven to delay aging in a rat, in a mouse, in a squirrel, he will do it, right? So a study comes out showing that tickling your feet with lavender meant a rat lived a day longer. Brian Johnson gets a lavender foot tickler in the next day. He's like, I'll give it a whirl. What's the worst he can do? I've made the money, I'll do it. And he tracks everything. He tracks his NAD levels, his cellular marker of energy. He tracks his white blood cells. He tracks his gum health. He tracks his nighttime erections. If anyone's following that real time, it's quite good fun. He's having a good week. But he does that because your penis, if you have one, if you're lucky enough to have one, if you've got one, is the richest source of capillary bed. So it's the first indicator of vascular disease. Erectile dysfunction, the first marker of a heart attack, 20 years before you get a heart attack, just for those who are a bit worried about it. And that's not going to make anyone feel better about themselves, by the way. Brian checks everything, but what he's doing is checking how fast he's aging. There's only a few things he does that affect his aging. There are these clinics popping up, Fountain Life, longevity clinics here, there, and everywhere. Brian Johnson, the only things that actually work meaningfully are retaining his cardiorespiratory fitness. He's obsessive with VO2 max, as he rightfully should be, and he's obsessive at retaining lean tissue and keeping body fat, particularly visceral fat, to a minimum. He's obsessive of going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time in a dark, cool room, free from caffeine, free from alcohol, and he's obsessive about not over-consuming calories and eating within a designated window. He takes 155 supplements that might make 0.1% difference. He does 4 things that you can do that makes 95% difference of the world's most effective longevity professional. And you're selling it as fitness. I cry when I see a longevity center open. First-class longevity. These people, again, are going to be doing lots of injectables. They're going to make me look really young. So when I die, I look really good as they lower me into the coffin. I'm nice and Botoxed, but I'm dead. Looking young is not the same as being young. Cellular age is only defined by the behaviors that you've pushed back against. You own longevity, but these clinics have commercialized it before you've even considered it. You are a longevity professional, whether you like it or not, whether you sell it or not, whether you track it or not. Longevity isn't about tracking things that happen to increase or decrease as you age. It's changing the physiology that ages. Cardiorespiratory, resistance training, consistent sleep, calorie restriction. They're the only things that really are evidence-based in humans, rats, and squirrels. We've got everyone talking about life, length life, whatever it is, this laser work. Let's work on the basic idea that human capability, here I am in my 30s, and being a bit generous, it declines past a threshold of capability. Our job is to retain functional capability as late into life as possible. You can call that health span, you can call it retained capability. No one's interested in living longer. People are interested in living well for longer and dying well. And they will pay for that, and they're paying hundreds of thousands. Dave Asprey, a very questionable biohacker born out of America, charges a £250,000 subscription to be a member of his team. Peter Attia does the same thing. Peter Attia will charge you £180,000, and his main test is how long you can hang on to a bar. Right? It's not the MRI. The MRI's show. It's not the CT scan it show. It's how long you can dead hang. Right? You can do that. So retaining my capability, and that's what you are the only professional who can resist my natural biological degradation. And again, think about what that means for your offering and your pricing. Another area I spend a lot of time in, so I think first point is think about testing. Second point, think about longevity. Third point is corporates are suffering because for all the well and unwell people, they feel it. The NHS feels it, but if I've got a business and everyone's 37% in an energy point of view, they're knackered. My productivity goes down. And corporates are desperately trying to work out how they stop their workforce feeling so awful. And they're drowning under it. Now we've got a completely new environment where if you go to your management consultants, your law firms, they've got 87% of the people who are joining asking, have you got access to a gym? What's your relationship with psychological well-being? Have you got access to a meditation app? Do you have a sensory room? And your HR director's like, what? We don't know it. We give you a subscription to Headspace if that's okay. And then we ask you to work 18 hours a day with no breaks, but hopefully that balances out. And again, from a retention point of view, people are leaving the workforce in droves. And if someone leaves my workforce, it costs me 33% of the salary to replace them. So we're seeing a huge drain of people out of industry because they're struggling from this new concept of burnout, psychological distress, etc. It's a new pandemic. Absenteeism, 4.17 billion, these are a little bit old, these figures. And again, long-term illness lasting more than 4 weeks. The 2 biggest single cost challenges are musculoskeletal disorders, of which non-specific back pain is number 1, and then stress, anxiety, or depression, which I would say, who's the professional who stops both of those? It is you. You know, some law firms, I've been involved, they put a medical clinic in. They put a GP service in. They try and catch people becoming grossly unwell slightly earlier so they can have less days off sick. Versus, how do I create increased quality of movement? You know, 5 minutes of movement out of every hour is going to be better than a reformer Pilates, again, once you're broken. And how do I increase or manage stress, anxiety, depression? The most singular effective modality known to mankind is exercise. Singularly effective. Outperforms all antidepressants, outperforms all, again, drugs that taper over, in many cases, the symptom. There's nuance to this. What I find interesting is that corporations are buying reactive services. They're putting employee assistance programs in so people can ring a telephone number when they feel like shit. But but they've forgotten to regularly drive patterns of movement, patterns of nourishment, and again, a proactive strategy, they'll spend for it. What was interesting when we looked years ago is that for every risk factor, if I've got obesity, if I don't sleep, if I've got high cholesterol, every risk factor I have makes me 2.4% less productive at my job. It's a really interesting statistic. So when I go to a firm and I talk about value, I say, well, if I take your average person who you pay 50,000 and I work on the idea that they would generate you 4 times their salary in terms of value, you pay them 50K, but they're worth 200,000, and most of them are overweight. If I take 80% of that room and I remove obesity, then I've made 80% of your workforce 2.4% more productive. That's 2.4%. That's $5,000 per person across 80 people. So they're not asking me what I charge for an hour's talk, because that's not what we're talking about. If I charge on time, I'll compete against everyone. If I charge on value, I don't. And if you are the highest value professional, you haven't done the deepest training, you haven't done 9 years at medical school, you haven't become a consultant, but from a value point of view, if you increase my cardiorespiratory fitness, let's take that as an example, by 1 milliliter per kilogram, you give me 45 days extra life expectancy, mathematically. There's no other figure that would do that, and there's no other profession that can do that. And again, I'm trying to click you out of that idea that you sell sets and reps to help people manage their body composition. You are the singularly most valuable health professional. You're just getting people before it goes wrong. Harder to prove it was until we started being able to prove it. I can measure your VO2, I can measure your body composition, I can measure your mobility, I can measure your psychological well-being. If you measure those things in your clients, you prove case studies. But corporates will pay through the nose. And before you sort of think, okay, I've got time to get this one, you are competing against technologies. I said, Whoop has decided it wants to be an ecosystem and a coach. So my Whoop, which I wear, is going to measure my sleep, it measures my VO2 max, it measures my movement levels, it stratifies my exertion levels into the different categories, zone 5, zone 1. It now is trying to track my resistance training, it's tracking my stress real time, and it's also tracking my behavior. So I could wake up in a couple of weeks and go, Whoop, I've got a big presentation today, what should I do? So I have a big presentation tomorrow, what should I do today? And it will say, Ollie, for you, have your last coffee at 3 p.m., go for a 35-minute walk in zone 1, and make sure you go to bed by 11:15, because it knows me. So you're either on the side of the tech and embracing it, or you will be on the outside of the circle with your clients, more empowered by personalized information than you've ever considered. These aren't beta, that is live, that's going on here. Muse wants to control my thought patterns by, again, driving me into what we call neurofeedback. Haptic devices like Sensate don't want you doing a breath work with you or going for a walk in nature. They want to stick a stone on your chest and vibrate it until you chill out a little bit. And it does work. When we look at how you, again, move into this next era of commerciality, you need to think about how you embrace these products, because they are cleverer than you can be, because they're adding more data points than ever. And we know this well-known phrase, AI won't, I probably stole this from you, Ollie. AI won't replace you, but people who use AI will replace those who don't. Right? And I think very much the same with wearables. A wearable won't replace you, but the coach who uses wearables and rolling data will replace the coach that doesn't. So how you think about embracing that into wrapped models. Again, I work with a few different companies who embed the cost of a wearable into their offering, because then they can charge for the follow-up phone call to check how you've been sleeping that week. Small groups of people. Whoop's built Whoop groups, so you can have a group of people who all check each other's sleep and movement data. What's the value of that? Then you're suddenly selling a relationship, you're not selling a transaction. Then I can be £500 a month. Yeah, you see me 4 times in that month, but actually I touch base with you 6 times. We're seeing some PT models where they're selling units of time. So I'd sell a unit of time for 15 minutes, and so a PT session is 4 units of time. But when I ring you to see how you slept last night, that's 1 unit. And when I run through your Whoop data online, that's 2 units. Isn't that a clever model? Suddenly I'm commercializing the conversation in a way that you're buying blocks of units. Point of interest to note. But the products are here. And nutrition is fascinating. Lots of people say, I need to see a nutritionist. You go, well, I've collected food diaries, I've run stool analysis, I've run organic acids on everyone. I can pretty much tell you what the results will be if you eat whole foods slowly, mostly plants with sufficient protein. I won't need to run the testing. You are a nutritionist if you're prepared to correct the biggest dietary dysfunction, which is most people eat too much ultra-processed food. I had a great conversation on my podcast with Dr. Sarah Berry from Zoe. If you eat your food 15% slower, you eat 20% less calories. Isn't that an amazing stat? Why do I eat food so fast? Because there's no fiber in it. If your clients have tracked to MyFitnessPal and they're less than 30 grams of fiber for females, 38 for males, add fiber. You don't have to do deep nutritional testing to get me to eat mostly whole foods, slowly, mostly plants with sufficient protein, and consider not eating all the way through the day. Not time-restricted eating, just stop eating at 8 and pick up eating again the following morning at 8. We've got a really fascinating thing. We've overcomplicated the basics. You don't need to see a nutritionist outside of a complicated reaction to food or some very specific periodization goal or some eating disorder with an emotional component. There is value in there. I don't need to see a performance physiologist to do 8,000 steps, lift some tin, again, and stretch. There's always a better professional, but who's the master generalist? Why don't you just be 7 out of 10 good on 5 subjects rather than 9 out of 10 good on 1 when that's not the way the body works? That's my point here. And it's the same with sleep. Everyone's like, Ollie, I want to go and see a sleep doctor. So, well, sleep doctors are respiratory consultants checking whether you have sleep apnea, whether you have a snoring disorder that means you deoxygenate during the night, or you have some form of chronic insomnia where you can't fall asleep or stay asleep. Most people, 61% of the UK doesn't sleep well, not because they've got a chronic sleep disorder, it's definitely less than half of that. So we've got about 17 million people in the UK who don't sleep well because they don't understand caffeine has got a half-life of 7 hours. And so it's going to be in me after lunch and it inhibits sleep cycles. They don't understand alcohol helps me fall asleep but keeps me in light sleep because it fragments deep and REM sleep. They don't understand that I need to be physically active to generate sleep pressure, otherwise I'm not built the fatigue to fall asleep. And they certainly don't understand I need to wake up and encounter sunlight and fall asleep at a consistent time in the darkness and the cool. You understand those 5 things, you solve 17 million people's sleep disorders. So who are you trusting to do that? Because you will know, all your training only works if I sleep. I grow during sleep, I repair during sleep, I recover during sleep. So when you as a fitness professional decide, I'm just going to do the sets and reps, you're hoping that your clients get good advice in this area, but they're on TikTok being told they need to take a horse tranquilizer's dose of magnesium before they do the idea of cutting out booze and caffeine, which is madness. I frame it again. If you want to be a wellbeing professional, there is a runway. There is a client demand. You just need to work out how you fit it into your operating model. What is my value to you if I boost your VO2 max by 5%? I give you 1 kilogram of skeletal muscle mass. And I manage to keep you pain-free when you would otherwise not be. What if I finally control your weight? If I stabilize your blood glucose levels, whether you have metabolic disease like diabetes or not, but suddenly you have better daytime energy, no mid-afternoon dip. I manage to make you improve recovery so you're less sore, less achy, more energized, and I manage to take you into deep sleep for the first time ever. What am I worth to you now? Because I don't want to hear people haggling whether it's £40 an hour, £50 an hour. I'm the most valuable professional you'll meet if I can do those things. And you're the only professional who can do all those things. I can go and see people who do these bits, but no one can do this. So when I look at your capability, your opportunity, there will be no drug for this. There is no mushroom. There is no, at the moment, democratizable gene editing strategy. And when you think about what you want to be, I want you to lean into the fact you could be the most valuable professional. You could also do what you're doing and add great value and be part of an ecosystem and clients get it worked out for themselves. I get that. Not everyone wants to do this. But at the moment, there is no wellbeing professional at a preclinical level. It doesn't exist. We say, I want to be more well, where do you go? Well, so I've got my nutritionist on the Monday, then I'm seeing my coach on the Tuesday about my mindset, then I'm going to do the gym with my personal trainer on the Thursday, and then I'm going to go and see my sleep doctor on the what we're doing. You don't need specialists for a generalist problem. You can give evidence-based lifestyle advice across more areas than movement as long as you don't diagnose problems. I'm not diagnosing a sleep disorder, I'm telling you give up coffee. I'm not diagnosing a gut microbiome imbalance, I'm saying eat some fiber. If you hold on to behavior, you can own it. If you start trying to do things outside of your scope of practice, you diminish your capability. There's a line there that's worth discussing. Consider embedding testing into your model or your fee. Longevity and corporate well-being are both in their infancy. There's 1 million companies in the UK classified as small to medium enterprise. They've got no well-being strategy, no insight whatsoever to do with this. Is that a lunchtime talk at your local law firm? Is that you popping across and doing a talk on sleep to the bank across the road? They are chasing content on this day after day after day. And consider adding a wearable data analysis to your kit, at least to understand what you're competing against, if not to align with it and augment it. And again, nothing you wear, nothing you test, Nothing you analyze makes you more well. The behaviors you adhere to is what your physiology will calibrate to. And he or she who owns behavior owns well-being and a huge commercial opportunity for the next, again, 20 years for sure. You can join my relatively small followership on Instagram at _OlliePatrick. I do some skills training on future practice, technical skills on stress, sleep, VO2 max, and a few other things if that's a point of interest. But my greatest interest is that you feel a bit empowered to believe you are of high value, and how you find a way to commercialize that value. There's not a best practice, we're all learning, but there's a big demand. I guarantee there's a big demand. And that's me done. James, I think we're up to time. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much.